Let's dive into some stablecoins today and really break down how this is going to affect other crypto areas that you guys want to pay attention to. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's get going. I do want to thank our sponsor, and that is Uphold. Uphold, you can actually earn some yield over there on not only stablecoins, but also USD. So earn up to 4.5% APY. So check it out. Use our link down below and get into some of their discount programs. Okay, so let's go on to a couple of the topics here. One of the things I want you guys to focus on is what's happening around stablecoins. As you guys know, we've got a huge vote coming up this week. I'll talk about that in a minute. But stablecoins, in terms of a trend to watch, this is starting to move into mainstream. Now, this is still very early because a lot of companies are just now starting to realize how this is going to be used in modern day commerce. And what we're going to show you, I think, will surprise you. One other thing to watch out for is this right here, and that is the U.S. Senate is going to be voting on the Stablecoin Genius Act. That's happening this week. Once it's passed, then it just moves over pretty much to the House for a rubber stamp, and it's done. That will mean that we have a stablecoin legislation in the United States, which will be an absolute unbelievable push into the market. And I think you're going to see a lot of companies start to see this going forward. Now, many people are starting to try to leverage against stablecoins and do it in a way that might be a little risky. This is one of the platforms out there that a lot of people that are traditional in finance are looking for ways to earn yield. And this is a good example of some of these. Most of these I would not touch. Many of these are, ridiculous yield prices. You can kind of see that one at almost 14%. Anything over 5% is probably a little bit aggressive and most likely will end up bad. So just pay attention to that. Also look at some of the trusted locations where you guys can earn yield. So let's get into this right here. Let's build a stablecoin related portfolio and what that might mean. So one to watch, of course, right there is Ethereum, still leading the way. Tron right behind it, not necessarily one I would get into, and I'll explain that in a second. But also you've got Solana in there, Arbitrum, and a handful of others, including Avalanche. Point being is that there are a lot of good projects out there that I think are going to get immediately impacted by this bill going forward. Tether froze some Tron assets, only worth $12.3 million over the some AML risk. But the point is that we have seen a little bit of, I think, unstableness around the Tron ecosystem. So just something to keep in mind. All right, and if you know Justin Sun, then you probably understand he's not necessarily been the perfect example of crypto. A lot of, I won't say sketchy details, but the point is that questionable moves overall in terms of crypto in general. A lot of PR, a lot of those kind of bombastic moves that we've seen in crypto. So one thing to look at when you think about stablecoins, Tether has been one of the world leaders out there outside the United States. Obviously, Circle went public last week, still flying. But if you look at Tether's chart and the growth that we've seen right here, notice that there is a new entry, and that is USD1. Now that is World Liberty Fi. And when you kind of hover over this, you'll notice Binance was right there involved, along, of course, within an ETH ecosystem. For one to kind of come out of the blue, and I shouldn't say out of the blue, but in the sense of being able to start to make a little bit of an impact, that's a pretty big deal. So just be aware of that when looking at stablecoin ecosystems. Now, one that is trusted more so than any, and we've talked about this before on the show quite a bit, is PYUSD. Now, that is being held in, of course, by PayPal. PayPal continues to move up, and they're one of the most trusted payment brands. Well, I would say the trusted payment brand when it comes to retail, especially for people around the United States, maybe globally. So you look at that and you compare to PayPal's growth right here. This is their market cap for PYUSD. So really kind of the entry that we saw at the end of 2023 when they announced it. And then it's just been slowly moving up. And that is without a stablecoin bill. If you compare that to along with a lot of investors who are going to say, well, what stablecoin ecosystems could I get behind? Well, look at this. This is called Blue Chip. This is like a scoring system. PayPal, right there, PYUSD, grade A-. USDC gets a B+, and they are pretty much the number one stablecoin when it comes to crypto traders, at least in the United States. And then you got Tether holding out a D grade right there. One thing I will say that is missing here in XRP community, if you're listening to this, we need to get XRPL on here along with RLUSD. So I think that's a big factor going forward of really, one, seeing the stablecoin ecosystems that are available, because you're going to have a lot of new people getting into this for the very first time. Now, you wonder, there's a lot of people that are going to understand, well, stablecoins are going to grow, so what crypto projects could we invest in to correlate along with that? Well, at the end, I'll give you guys a full breakdown of the projects that you should be watching and why, and maybe even a portfolio split up to take a look. PayPal market share is the one that I'm looking at because this is a big one. PayPal has 39% market share in terms of payment gateway industry. That is insane to have that much. Number 2 out there is Stripe. They're the second at 38%. So those two companies alone. With Stripe, though, what you've got is mostly been through acquisitions. They're moving into the market. They kind of missed the boat. Remember, they were offering crypto payments a long time ago, backed away from it. Now, of course, they've repositioned the whole component of where their strategy is going. Now, here's a clip with Jeremy Allaire, and he's getting into the point that I think is going to set the market on fire. Listen to this. Take a look.
Just yesterday, we saw Shopify announce that they're making USDC payments a default option automatically. Wow. For every merchant on their platform in the US and then in Europe. That's like 1 million merchants.
So like a PayPal button and
pay
then
with USDC.
And then a USDC button.
It will be there by default.
Yeah.
And in fact, not only that, they'll be offering merchants 0.5% cash back to the merchant. So they're going to actually compensate the merchant, which is incredible.
All right, guys. I want you to break that down for what he just said. Now, most merchant systems out there, I shouldn't say most, all merchant systems out there when it comes to online e-commerce and retail, you're talking about anywhere between 1.5% all the way up to 3% that it's charging to the merchant to make a transaction. What they're talking about now is spinning that completely on its head, and they're starting with 0.5% that they're paying the merchant just to offer USDC. Imagine a merchant, that's a almost 4% move in terms of the profitability of where a merchant is going. And I think that it's going to get more competitive because of the yields that are being paid on these stablecoins, which are hovering very similar to money markets right now, between 3 and 4 to 4.5%. So this is going to be a big deal. And when you look at other things that are happening in the space right now, PayPal is bringing its stablecoin to PYUSD. And of course, remember, Stellar is the one that leads the way when it comes to cross-border. Now, I know a lot of you will say, well, wait a minute, that's XRP. Well, it's actually Stellar that has it from a stablecoin component. And that, I think, is going to be a big deal going forward with PayPal. Other things that are going into this is the Stellar CEO talking about what's the most important thing when it comes to a stablecoin. You would think maybe market cap, right? Listen to this.
PayPal is kind of the perfect party to be able to do that because they have access to these merchants that are already part of their ecosystem, and they're going to use it and focus on velocity. So there's always this focus on volume, and lots of asset holders want volume to exist so that they can, earn the interest on that. But when you think about velocity, that actually gets to the usage point, and it gets to the piece of saying, what is the value of this asset and how is it being used in the world? And that's what PayPal focuses on. And so, think bill pay. If you think about like payroll, you think about all these things for small to medium-sized businesses that they already have relationships with. That's the usage of the asset, not just the asset itself. And PayPal's always been part of that game.
Payroll, I think, will be a major one, whether that's ADP or companies like Gusto that will integrate this into USDC and the use of other stablecoins in general. And I think as you start to look at stablecoins across the different ecosystem, one, of course, to watch right here, and this one is related to PayPal, is Flow. Flow right here. Remember, Flow had a couple other stablecoin use cases, and they started to essentially move into PYUSD. That's PayPal. So that, of course, will start to lead to things like this, and that is where you'll be able to get the most yields based on the trust score of these stablecoins. So that's something I think that will grow. Here you can kind of see ETH leading the way, obviously Solana. Very similar actually in general to the stablecoin market, but right there, Barachain, and then even Flow right there. And again, this gets back to the idea of where is the most trustworthy stablecoin. What would you trust? You look at stablecoins in general right now on Flow, most of this PYUSD and then USDC right behind it. So again, not using Tether. So maybe PYUSD starting to see some big growth. One last note on Flow is with that kind of integration with PYUSD, you see a little bit of growth here in terms of overall transaction. Well, quite a bit, actually, about 3x of transactions. But that's the point. You're going to see a lot of chains that are going to start to see massive transaction growth because of the amount of velocity, back to the point of how much is it being used. And if PYUSD, remember, 40% of market share out there in terms of global payments when it comes to online e-commerce, PayPal might end up being in the right place. I want to go to another clip because this is the PayPal CEO saying this is why we're doing this. Take a look.
I fundamentally believe guest checkout is going to be a winner-take-all market. Yeah. In guest checkout, it doesn't make any sense to have multiple different choices. And we have the largest breadth of merchants that we can get access to. It's why you've seen us sign up partners like Adyen and Chase that we announced earlier this week international. So
you know it, I know it, we've talked about it, retail, guest checkout, online e-commerce, even retail checkout, I think, is going to lead the way. The key here, the difference with online checkout versus in-person checkout, in person, I think it's going to be the mobile payer that will win. That's why PayPal has never really dominated that space. But when it comes to e-commerce, that's where the bulk of retail is done. You guys can see the writing on the wall. So you're wondering, what is the best potential investment that can get around this? And I'll tell you how to break down a portfolio that is correlated to your stablecoins. When you take a look at RLUSD right here, you'll see, zoom in a little bit on that, 3 times the volume. That's the number right there. I'm hovering on almost 90 million right there. 3 times the volume around what's happening on PYUSD right there. Okay, in terms of where we see the position of these two stablecoins. PYUSD, one that you keep an eye on. But when you look at velocity, now it changes things up a little bit. This is a little bit different. This is transfer volume. Look at the transfer volume right here on PayPal, 3.3 billion. Now, granted, that's small compared to the other guys that are out there when you look at Sky, Athena, Tether, and of course Circle. But the point is the opportunity to grow because of the market capture that PayPal might have is huge. You think about Ripple, let's take a look. They're just getting started. RLUSD, what we're seeing with Ripple, USDC, obviously with Circle, and many more. Remember that we also have the European components that would be playing into the global ecosystem. I don't think they will hold a candle to what's happening in the United States. Other things to watch right here. Remember, June 16th, this is happening. Judge Torres may finally drop the long-awaited ruling on Ripple versus the SEC. That in itself will probably give a lot more incumbents into what's going on with RLUSD. Take a look at this right here. XRP gets a nice boom over it, and I think this is anticipating something. This is anticipating what we've been talking about before, and that is growth in the stablecoin market. I want to go to another clip real quick because this is what happened over at the Apex event, and this is an interesting point because it gets into how XRP and Ripple might make it into the retail space. Take a look.
Tom, I want to see a live demo of Xeno Finance. Live demo? So like I'm a restaurant owner or I'm a shop owner. You just ate at my restaurant, we had a pizza and a Coke or something. Okay, that'll be $9, Tom.
$9. There we go, processing transaction. 4 seconds, there we go, successful. $9. And the average Visa transaction is $60, so you'd probably be paying around $1.35 of that as fees.
Yeah.
Now you're paying 1 cent, less than 1 cent. So that's a huge savings per user.
Yeah.
All right, so you saw RLUSD being used on that. Tom's been on our show before. He's a big developer around the ecosystem when it comes to retail payments. This is the thing that I think will make a huge difference because I feel like that is still up for grabs, retail payments from a mobile device. So the winner of that is going to get big and get big fast. Now, other big winners out there, I tweeted on this weekend, and it's really which stablecoin we try when it comes to a retail system. And this is talking about Walmart and Amazon. Let me know in the comments which one. I mean, if Walmart said, hey, you're going to get a little additional discount, or Amazon say, hey, we're going to give you an additional rewards, which one would you use? And would you be okay with using their stablecoins over others? Most likely they'll ride on one of the ecosystems, so watch those. Could be Stellar, could be something like Ethereum, etc. Matt Hogan kind of hit it out of the park with this one. And he basically says, wait, I thought you said credit cards were good enough. And now Bloomberg saying retailers seeing use case of stablecoins mainly to push back against card fees. This is the thing we've talked about for years on this channel. And at some point, people are going to open up to this. And then it is going to be an absolute avalanche going forward around retail use case, because these retailers are sick and tired of paying these fees. Let me show you this right here. This is GUSD. So imagine a network that could happen around retailers. They could happen in the restaurant industry, the commerce industry, the hotel industry, whatever it might be. They could be coming together here, utilize a stablecoin like GUSD, and then be able to get their own yield. Remember, that's a 3 to 5% yield that's coming back in on these stablecoins. Now, PayPal has yet to go in that direction where they'll pay the retailer, much like what Circle was talking about. Circle was talking about paying the retailer like a half a point. I think this is going to get competitive, just like it does with money markets. If you look at your money markets out there, everybody's jumping around at different money markets because they're paying more yields, because they know that that flow is the most important. So be on the lookout. We're going to see a lot of that coming. Now, where would you go in terms of drafting a portfolio? Well, you kind of look at it this way. Obviously, ETH, that's where all the big money is going to be moving. That's 50% of your portfolio. Solana, you could come in mainly targeted at retail, around 25%. XRP, just because of banking, but look for them on the outside chance to move into point of sale. If that happens, 10%. Then you get into layer 2. This will be Solana alternatives, Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon. Those all hover around 9%. Then you'll get into Stellar for cross-border payments if you want to cover that. Flow, this is right now getting PayPal-backed yields. That doesn't necessarily mean, but that's where you're going to see the largest yields. So potentially 2.5% there. Then growth brands, growth chains to watch. Avalanche, Sui, Aptos, all of those will slide into that last position. That's a portfolio that you're building around just stablecoins. So if you're brand new to crypto and you're thinking, how do you play this big boom that we're going to see? Well, there was a lineup for you right there, guys. Not investment advice, but it gives you at least some framework to go out and do your own research, understand why these particular tokens could start to see movement, and it's all happening around payments. All right, guys, if you're not in the Diamond Circle, get in right now. It's a great place to get additional content. Follow me on X, @Paul Barron. I'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.